Welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about preparing yourself for a medical coding job interview. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So I'm going to talk about some questions that you should ask if you are looking for a job in medical coding and you get to that interview stage. Here are some questions to ask, so I hope you'll write them down, or I hope my questions will help inspire some questions of your own that you may have for the company that you want to work for, and you write them down. It is okay to have a list with you when you are going in for an interview, or if you are doing your interview online, if you're doing it like through Zoom or Teams or something like that. It is okay to have a list of questions. If I am a hiring manager and if I see somebody coming in with a list of questions, this tells me this person is prepared. I already like this person because they are prepared. You thought enough to come to this interview ready, okay? And you must come ready for their questions. Now, there is no universal book that they're going to use to have a question bank, so you really don't know what they're going to ask you. So you need to be confident in your base questions and the base questions that you may get, okay? So that's the first thing that you got to know right out of the gate, working on that confidence. Now, if you tell me, well, Blue, I get really nervous meeting people or even talking online and things like that because I just feel like I'm going to screw up and say the wrong thing. First of all, you have a trained skill, okay? You're not coming in as somebody off the street that doesn't know anything. You do know this stuff. You just need to take a breath and remind yourself that you do know this stuff. You have lots of skill and skill that is still yet to be built, and you're going to be able to bring it in, and this organization is going to be better because of you. But the only way you're going to be able to get in is if you let them know. They don't know you. These people that are doing this, the hiring committees, they don't know you. And you may be up against people who have experience. But even if somebody has experience in coding, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are well-rounded with their knowledge. Sometimes people will have years of experience and will have only worked in one specialty or done only one thing, whether it is PT or OT, or maybe they've done family practice, or maybe they've only done the ER. There's a myriad of things that somebody could have just done one thing their entire career and had years of experience. Now, it's okay to have that, right? To be in one specialty, but as long as you are building your skill in other specialties, you're just fine, okay? But for those of you that are interviewing, don't be intimidated, because what I'm telling you is this: even though somebody has years of experience, they sometimes don't always have the same knowledge as somebody new coming in. Somebody new coming in who's continually preparing themselves is going to be ready for these types of interviews and is going to be able to effectively show their communication skills and their knowledge of coding based on how they're communicating it. So with that said, you want to have a list of questions that you want to ask, because when you are interviewing, they will ask you, do you have any questions for us? And you can't say, oh no, I think we covered everything. One of the very first questions that you need to ask, because that first question that I'm going to say is going to be the make or break of what type of job this is. Now, if you have watched my channel before, you know that I have done a video, I've done several videos about reasonable productivity standards for medical coders. If you are on the outpatient side, anywhere between 80 and 150 average per day, okay? That is reasonable. Now, if you think 150 is a lot, 150 is a lot, but there are some specialties that are really repetitive, so it's a lot of the same thing. So if you get to 150, that's okay. But, and then for the inpatient side, some people say 2 charts per hour or 3 charts per hour. So their productivity looks a little bit different on the inpatient side, only because 2 to 3 charts per hour, but still you're looking through the entire record. And some people are in there for days, like weeks, and sometimes even months. It really all depends on what's going on with that patient. But you have to look at all the documentation. So Sometimes 1 to 2, 2 to 3 sounds really great, but when you're looking at how long the patients are staying in there, that can really make a difference in how fast you can get through that documentation, okay? So with the outpatient side, between the 80 and 150 per day, you are coding that date of service, okay? So there's a date of service, and that's the encounter, and that's how they do. But with the inpatient side, you're coding for their stays, you know, so if their stay is 5 days, that's what you're looking at, all that documentation, okay? And so again, on the outpatient side, but you want to ask them, that is your very first question, what is your productivity standards? Now, if they say anywhere between, and if you're on the outpatient side, outpatient clinic coding, right? Evaluation and management, CPTs, procedure codes, HCPCS, all that. If they're saying your average productivity standard is 80 per day, okay, well then we can keep talking. This is a good thing. But if they say, well, we expect our coders to code in the ER 320 encounters per day, you can continue the conversation if you like, but that would be it for me. Just hearing 320, that is not coding. That is data entry. It's the same thing if they say, we expect our coders to get 200 per day. That is not coding, that is data entry. There is no way that you can go through a record or go through an encounter and see all the documentation and go through all of that information and be able to pump it out. No, the providers are not always selecting the correct codes. Sometimes they do, but it's not going to be on the vast majority of them, okay? And the leveling might be a little bit off, you know, depending. And if they use computer-assisted coding, and you can ask them that as well, is computer-assisted coding used? Computer-assisted coding is just how it sounds, computer-assisted coding. So basically, it's using AI to look at the documentation, and it's drawing out what it thinks it needs to be picked up. So again, because AI does not have the ability to critical think, a lot of times it's going to be wrong, or it's going to be missed sequence, like not sequenced in the correct order, or the 7th character of an injury is going to be wrong. There's a myriad of reasons, and you need time to go through these. So if they're saying that it is over 200, over 300 per day, that is not the job for you. You can continue on with the interview just to get that practice in, but that's not a serious contender for where you want to start. And if you say, well, Blue, I'm just desperate, I want to get in, and they really seem like they want to hire me, they want a data entry clerk. But when push comes to shove, who's going to get blamed for putting through wrong codes? Not the supervisor, because the supervisor didn't do it. You did it. We are culpable for what we are selecting. Remember that. That's why being accurate is very important. Don't let it scare you. I want you to be prepared. And that's why practicing helps. Yes, in your career, you will make mistakes. Yes, you will select the wrong codes from time to time. But if this is not a habit, it is a learning opportunity, right? And if you are coding ethically, then you will learn from your mistakes and you will improve, okay? Because we always want to be as accurate as possible, but mistakes happen because we are humans, okay? But again, we have the ability to critical think, and that is going to be the difference right there. So ask them what their productivity standards are, and if they tell you anything in the green zone, 80 and 150 in the outpatient setting, 2 to 3 in a per hour average in the inpatient setting, then you're okay. Then you are okay. If it is less than that, sometimes the productivity will be a little bit less than that on the outpatient side, and that's okay too, because it's still reasonable, still within the reasonable category, all right? And if you happen to do more, if you happen to exceed the productivity standard, let's just say you were on a really good day and you did 160. Sometimes that happens. It doesn't always happen, but sometimes it can happen depending on what's going on in that clinic that day. So that's okay. If you can code a few extra in a day, that'll make up for the other days that you kind of fall behind. So that's just something that you got to know for that one. But that is the most important question, is that productivity standard. Okay, so make sure that it's within the green zone. All right. Now, what about accuracy? You got to ask them about the accuracy. Now, a lot of people kind of freak out about the accuracy. Accuracy, they need to check to see if you are coding correctly. Now, when you first start in a job, a lot of times they'll do what's called a pre-bill, which means that they will check out 100% of what you're coding before it gets final billed, okay? So they are not going to they're not going to let anything pass without checking it out themselves first. So they're going to look and see, okay, everything's good. Then you get to enter the codes in, or somebody does, and then it's done, okay? So with that, they get a good sense of your accuracy. And when they're doing a pre-bill, you have to get over a certain percentage accurate in order to pass the pre-bill. And if you don't meet that threshold, right? Say the threshold is 95%. Let's just say you come in at 93%. They will run the pre-bill again, okay? It just means that there's something that you probably need to work on. And if they're patient enough with you to work with you through that time and hold your hand through that, you're okay. But if not, then that's gonna be a firm warning for you that, hey, I need to work on evaluation and management. I need to work on my code selections. I need to work on coding the diagnosis in more specifics, and you will get used to that after a while. So that's just something that you got to be aware of. But 95% is reasonable. 97% gets a little bit, but it does happen. At my facility, we are at 97%, okay? And so meeting it and striving for that bar is very, very critical, especially because accuracy means everything to us, okay? But don't panic if you don't meet it right away. As long as you are showing that you are improving, that's all they need to see, okay? But you need to ask them, what is your accuracy like? What does the accuracy look like, okay? And just write that down. Write down whatever they say. If they say it's 95%, great. If they say it's 97%, great. But you need to write it down so that way you know what to look for, okay? The next question you should ask is, what is the audit process like? Now, this is a good question because this is going to tell them that, hey, this person knows that they're going to get their work checked. Now, the audit process, what they're going to do is they're going to go through all the records that you, or the encounters that you have coded for, and they're going to take a certain number of them. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30. The more records they are pulling for you in whatever time it is, the better your chances of a better accuracy rate. The less records they pick, the more, if you make one mistake, your goose is cooked, okay? So you want to make sure that you're asking them, what is the audit process like? If they say, oh, well, we pull some of your records that you've done, is it a certain percentage, or is it like 15? Is it 20? Is it 25? Is it 30? 25 and 30 is better. Heck of a lot better than 15, okay? But just ask them, is it monthly? Is it quarterly on these audits? Sometimes facilities will audit, or the clinic, whatever, the department will audit you once a month. Sometimes they'll audit you once a quarter. And so when you do get your audits, they'll let you know what your accuracy was. And they will let you know what you did wrong. Okay, that's typical. And if they say, when they're explaining the process to you, that the auditor will go through an audit to make sure that you've done it correctly. If not, they'll let you know where you messed up, and then you can review the results. That's usually how it goes. And then you can see if you agree. Now, here's where we have to kind of put our egos aside a little bit when we are getting audited. You will be told in your career sometime that you are wrong. You may not always like the person who's telling you that you're wrong, okay? Now, that happens a lot, but it is not personal. It may feel personal. And you may not like the person for whatever reason, but you're liking them, the auditor, has nothing to do with your coding. You need to be able to prove that you are right. Now, if you can prove that you're right, because auditors are human too, and they sometimes make mistakes as well. Sometimes they don't see things, and sometimes they mix things up. So if you are able to pull a guideline from the ICD-10-CM coding guidelines, or CPT, any of the official guidelines from CPT, whether it's in the surgical section or any of those things, or even in the book itself, if you are able to pull some kind of official guidance from coding clinic or CPT assistant to support why you chose that code, that's going to be your defense. So then you can ask them, what does the rebuttal process look like for the audits? Now, they're going to be even more impressed, because they're going to say, okay, this person knows that they can defend themselves, because you're not supposed to just accept errors and be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, this is wrong. If the auditor is doing their job appropriately, they will tell you why you got something wrong. And they will point out the regulation, they will point out the guideline. And if they don't, then it is up to you to verify that, yes, what they said was correct, okay? Now, again, that's just something that you're going to ask in this interview. What is that rebuttal process like? Am I able to defend my code selections? Am I able to do that? And if they explain that process, then good. This is still a good thing, because that is what we want in the audit process, because that is your accuracy, that is your name, that is your reputation that you are building with that accuracy, okay? Accuracy and talking about audits is on another another episode, but I just want to get through the interview questions. So asking them about the rebuttal process and taking notes is a really good thing, all right? The other thing is, what is the hierarchy like? Will you be working with a lead coder? Will you be working with a supervisor? That makes a difference there, okay? So you want to ask them about the hierarchy and what does that look like. If you have a question, if you get stuck on something and you've done your research, make sure that you emphasize, after I have done my research and I still can't figure it out, who would I go to? Okay, so that way they know, okay, this is somebody that knows they need to do their research first before they ask us, okay? And so that's the other thing that you want to make sure your questions have a way of communicating that you are ready, even though you may not feel ready, but that you are ready, and that you know how to handle a situation, you can problem solve. Because a lot of times people just want to have their hand held, and they just want to, just tell me what to do. This field involves a lot of critical thinking and a lot of thinking on your feet. So you want to make sure that you are ready for this. And again, the questions that you are asking, a strong candidate will ask these questions and the interviewers will be impressed. I have done this video several times, and I've had people come back here and say, Blue, I did everything you said. I asked them all those questions and the interviewers were impressed. I got the job. That's happened more than once. So what I'm telling you is what, if I was hiring, this is what I would expect people to be asking me in the interview. Because it's not just the interviewer asking the questions. It is you. It's a push-pull. You've got to be able to ask questions yourself, okay? So the next question that you want to ask is, what does the work environment look like? If you are working a hybrid schedule, which means you are part-time in the office and part-time at home, ask them about that. Where would we be sitting? Are we going to be embedded in the clinic? Are we outside of the clinic? Are we in our own little office? And that kind of thing. You want to ask that question because it's very important. It's very key that new coders are working in-house first. If you're not able to, because maybe you're on the East Coast or you're on the West Coast, that's fine. It's just something that happens out there. The reason that I tell you guys it's important to be in person is because a lot of the nuance that we don't get in school, in coding school, you'll get working with other coders, okay? And so that's one of those things that's very key. So that's also going to segue into another question, which is, if you are working in-house, are you expected to provide provider education? Now, that may be a little intimidating for you, especially if you're brand new in the field, but it's not impossible. Remember, we have knowledge that the providers don't have. And so because we have knowledge that the providers don't have, we need to be very good at sharing that information because we understand it. and we need to be able to explain it in a way that they will understand, which will help them to become better documenters, which will help us to do our job much faster. So if they say, yes, we do expect you to do the education, but we'll have somebody walk with you the first time to do this so that way you can do it in a way that we expect, that's a great thing, because that is helping the coder to develop to be a strong coder. I feel like when leadership, supervisors, department heads, when they hold coders back from doing basic actions like provider education, it stunts the growth of the coder immensely. So you need to do that. And if you are shy, please, we need to work around that. We need to get past that. I know that you're shy. It's really difficult in the beginning, but that's not the end of your story. That's not everything that you are. You're not just a shy person, because believe it or not, I am shy. People will tell me, Blue, even when they see me in the hospital, Blue, you don't look at anybody, you don't do anything, you just go, I see you whip around this hospital from point A to point B. I got stuff to do, man, okay? I got stuff to do. I ain't got time to be messing with anybody, right? But that's something that, it's because I'm a shy person. Now, I'm not out here running around saying, oh, I'm medical coding with Blue. No, I've had people run up to me and say, oh my God, you're medical coding with Blue. They'll tell me that, and that's fine. But I'm also not out here like, talking to everybody because I'm shy. However, when it comes to the coding, that's when I get excited. That's when all that shyness goes away. And I completely change, because this is something that I love to do, because I get it. I love to do this, and I love to share it, because I like to see that light bulb go on when a provider gets it or when another coder gets it. I love that. It's everything to me, okay? So that's the way you've got to be if you want to break away from that shyness. And it takes time, because again, I was not always like that. And it took being embedded in the clinic, because I wasn't always embedded in the clinic. I was housed away from my providers for many years. And then we moved into this big, beautiful new hospital. And that was when we were plunged into the deep end of the pool. That was my very first time really being in the same environment as my providers, my PAs and my surgeons. And so just being around them and learning their personalities and hearing their feedback on coding and coders, it was a real big eye-opener for me, okay? So again, knowing your environment and knowing if you're going to be responsible for the education, that is a good thing, okay? And that also shows the interviewers that you're going to show initiative to do those types of things. And if your education is going to be online, you can talk to them about that as well. It's a little bit harder to develop, if I can get it out, to develop relationships with providers online. Okay, if you have to be remote, if you are in the area and they say, well, you're remote, but we expect you to come in for meetings and that kind of thing. Ask them how frequent are the meetings, whether it is meetings for the department or meetings with the providers. Ask about that, okay? And it's okay to ask those questions. Don't be shy, because they need to know who their strong candidates are. If I have somebody that's coming in there meek mouse and I can barely hear them when they're speaking, and they're not asking me questions, and I'm wondering what the heck I'm even doing here, that's something that I'm not going to want to have anything to do with that coder. But the coder that's coming in there with a list of questions and is asking me these detailed questions, I like this person. This is somebody that gets it. This is somebody that can learn quickly. Okay? It's one thing if you say, oh, I'm a fast learner. Everybody's a fast learner, right? Because we just want to get in there, right? Everybody's a fast learner. It's different when you walk the walk and talk the talk. Talking the talk is also saying these questions, right? Asking about the audits and asking about your time with the providers. Are you doing the educating? If somebody else is doing the educating, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. But you need to show the initiative that you're going to ask. Because again, that is part of what we're supposed to do as coders, is to educate, okay? I know not everybody does it, but what I am saying is you need to be prepared for it, okay? So those are some of the big questions that you want to ask. Also, you can ask about CEUs. You can ask Do they provide CEUs, or is that something that you're going to have to take care of yourself? Some facilities, that is a benefit of employment. At my facility, we get CEUs. We have once a month meetings where we have that coding education, and we get our CEUs for that. So that's a benefit of my employment, and that's something that you can ask the employer as well. Is that something that we do here? You know, that's what you want to ask them, because again, that's saying, okay, well, we know this is what we want to do. And so with all of that said, before I run out of time on this one, because of course time just flies, you want to make sure if you're going in person, you dress to impress. Okay, dress to impress. Guys, button downs, no polos. I don't ever want to see a guy in a polo when you're going for an interview. Button down shirt, slacks, nice shoes. Okay, ladies, if you wear slacks, if you wear a skirt, something nice and neutral. Okay, same thing with the blouse. It needs to be neutral, nothing flashy. Cream color, blues is better. Okay, cream or blue is really nice colors for ladies when you're, especially if you're wearing a skirt or if you're wearing slacks. That is something that you want to be as neutral. You want neutral tones, okay? Something nice, neutral. And same thing with the guys, nice and neutral. Guys, I really wish you would wear a tie too, because that would be really great. Ties are great, and it's very impressive. You know, you don't need a full jacket, but a tie would be nice, all right? Because you're in a business environment, all right? You are in a business environment. If you wear a blazer, ladies, wear a blazer, because that's also important. Because how you dress and how you present yourself is also going to be judged, all right? So you want to make sure that you are dressed well. In Texas, we call it Sunday best, okay? You want to wear your Sunday best. And you want to look nice, because again, it's very important. These people, they're going to be paying attention to how you look, because especially if you have to communicate with providers, they're going to look at that. Okay. Not that, oh, you have to be a model. No, but you do have to be professional. That's what they want. Above all else, they want you to be professional. No perfume, no cologne, none. No lotions, like smelly, perfumey lotions. None of that. None of that at all. No one should smell you when you're coming into the room, because for some reason, I don't know why people think, especially ladies, they can just drown themselves and no one can smell you. Trust me, one spray, you walk through it, people can smell that smell, whatever perfume it is. Now, perfume is supposed to be light and it's supposed to be like nice. But some of these ladies, it's just too much. You know, it's just, you're just drowning and choking on it. No, I don't think so. No, don't do that. Because if you go in there and you're reeking of whatever perfume or cologne that you're wearing, oh, trust me, you're not going to get the call. And it has nothing to do with your skill, has nothing to do with your interview skills either. It has everything to do with the fact that that person probably got a headache from all that perfume smell or cologne smell. So don't do it. That's not the place for it, okay? Plus, in hospitals, when you're working in hospitals or doctor's offices, there's often regulations preventing people from wearing heavy perfume. Now, it doesn't stop people from wearing heavy perfume or heavy cologne, because people still do it anyway. But it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant thing to be walking and you're just practically out of breath because somebody in front of you has all this perfume or cologne on. Don't do it, okay? Absolutely not. Because again, all that's going to do is drive you away from getting that job. I'm just saying, I don't care how nice you think you smell. Trust me, that is not the thing that you want to be remembered for. You want to be remembered as a person who was asking the really good questions. The person that was, I keep slipping on this thing, the person that was in the interview and engaged in the interview. And when you are doing this interview virtually, you need to be looking at the camera lens. You see, I'm looking at the camera lens right now. But if I look here, you can see there's a huge difference in my attention, because I'm looking at myself. And yes, while I may be looking at you in the interview, my message would be much more engaging if I'm looking at the camera lens. Okay, you can certainly look away and then look back at the camera lens. But when you are speaking, you need to be speaking into the camera lens. All right, so that way they know hey, they're speaking to me. And that's just a good way of having that good communication online, okay? And not all people know that you see that, okay? And the other thing is, if you are interviewing at home, it needs to be quiet. No one needs to see your cat walking across or your dog barking. No one needs to see any of that. People running in and out of the interview. No. It needs to be in a nice quiet space. Your camera needs to be facing a wall so that it's not all over the place and you see all this stuff. No. You need to be facing a wall, and you need to be looking at the camera screen, at the lens when you are speaking. So that way they know that you're really engaged in this meeting and you're not going to get distracted. Okay, so that would be what I would recommend. But yes, you ask them questions. And even if you can't think of something, you need to have a list of questions, because going in there with a list of questions, asking them about those key things, productivity, accuracy, audits, what the coding environment is like, if it's at home or if it's at the facility, where is it, and that kind of thing. If you are working with providers, if you are giving them education, you know, those things are key. Who is your hierarchy? And what do you do if you have questions? Do they provide CEUs? Those are some of the things that are very important to know, because a job that is willing to pay for CEUs and give them to you for free, as long as you're listening and getting educated, and of course you're doing what you need to do to get the CEU, that is, you know, a good way to show that you are invested into learning more. Okay, they need to see that you are willing to learn more. We have to talk the talk and walk the walk. Okay, just gonna say that. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Best of luck to you, and if this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.